KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. KOP is all about Amazon, and so should you. Go to King of Podcasts' special link at KingofAmazon.com.
So Payback tonight was definitely a reset for both Raw and SmackDown right now in terms of the stars they want to go ahead and position and push. It's what I feel like really was being addressed on the program. And again, WWE can always do things like this where they can start off with something fresh and give somebody a push and start doing things where they give somebody a chance in the right direction. But it's the follow-through that's always the important thing. And when it comes to storylines, we always talk about how they might start off a new angle pretty hot, but then they might be able to close it pretty hot, or somewhat satisfactory. They might have what I'm looking for. They might do a satisfactory job. There we go, of making it work. But can't necessarily say it's going to work out perfect because, they're not good at this. It's a corporate company that doesn't take a lot of attention to detail. And we've known that, and we expect that. And, their booking can always change from week to week, obviously. However, this got booked tonight. Vince can always make changes and say, you know what, I don't like it. And then he'll change things, and illogical changes will be made. But, again, there's some thoughts about what they decided to do tonight. Pretty simple show tonight. 2.5 hours. Went through quick. And, it wasn't bad. By the way, I also was watching at the same time Payback. I actually put on the side. I was watching the VMAs tonight, which I'm going to probably do an episode of when I'm not podcasting over my YouTube channel and on the podcast feed for it about that. But I just wanted to make a mention that it actually was quite good. I would recommend if you are into music and all, and, you thought the last couple of VMAs have been pretty shitty. Well, this one was actually pretty good without all the pomp and circumstance, the red carpet, and the fact that all the stars actually had to show up because they have nothing else better to do. So probably worked out for them to get some promotion at an event like this. It's being pushed out live anyway, so why not? Well, anyway, Thunderdome tonight, and they did a few things here. 8 matches on the card. I didn't watch IIconics and Riott Squad. Riott Squad got the win. That was the pre-show. And going into this, all right, Bobby Lashley submits Apollo Crews, United States title for him. So Bobby's had titles before, and is he going to get pushed anything into another direction at this point? Especially with the Hurt Business, when you see that Shelton's got 24/7 title, if it still has it, or I'm not sure. I don't know about that right now. But for the Hurt Business to be something more important, you have to give one of those guys a chance at a belt. So if the U.S. title means something, I guess. But again, U.S. title is a hot potato, and it doesn't mean anything. Just because Apollo Crews had it doesn't mean anything. U.S. title has always been like that. It either gets sit on somebody, and somebody just gets stuck with the U.S. title for a long-ass time, and then whenever they need to go ahead and push it out there and get it promoted, they'll use it, especially when they don't have a particular champion to go ahead and promote. But here's the thing. The U.S. title might have been promoted for a while because when Brock Lesnar was holding the belt, then what else was going on, right? You just got to ask yourself, what were some of the directions that you had? So U.S. title coming back into play doesn't make much of a difference to me at all. Then we move along into a number of matches where we see certain stars that we are getting behind. But again, the reasons why would be more of a concern to me more than anything else. Why are some of these stars getting pushed right now, and what's happening with this? But here's the thing. The next 4 matches they featured on Payback are all NXT stars in one way or another. Okay. 3 of them are very recent call-ups from NXT, right? So as we see the current card, now, of course, this does not represent the entire card. Heavy Machinery, is getting featured on SmackDown. Street Profits are being featured on Raw. You have Aleister Black, Ricochet, all kind of intertwined into Raw, just into some certain TV things as needed as necessary, but not in anything where they're being brought into SummerSlam or Payback. So who they are bringing up, it's a very interesting dynamic. So Big E right now, because of injuries, is now being put in a singles push. The singles push should have happened many years ago. It should have happened pre-New Day, to be honest. But I think the one thing that they wanted to do was they were not going to position Big E with anybody else to get him where he was. So the New Day gimmick was positioned on him, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston, which is fine. And what was kind of a three-man band type of field gimmick, they made it into their own, and they made it very successful. And the truth is, New Day could kind of, lay this off by the wayside, and we could see Big E go ahead and split off. And they don't even necessarily need a heel turn to split anything off. Big E could just go ahead and move along here and then just stand alone. And basically, the New Day could just be Kofi and Xavier when they come back. You could just do that. But for Big E, they're still putting him in the gimmick. But Big E, I think, if you want to make him a real definite singles push, you need to position him out. He needs to be phased out of New Day for me to take him seriously as a singles competitor that's going to the main event. Because as a New Day member, it's not going to be that way. I don't think they're going to do the same thing like they did with Kofi Kingston. I don't think it'll work. See, the thing is, I put it like this. Kofi Kingston needs the New Day gimmick to be able to be champion like he was. Okay? Kofi Kingston in his old gimmick, wouldn't have worked. In the New Day gimmick, yes. Because Kofi in the New Day gimmick has charisma here. A better charisma than he has, and he has support alongside him. So with that said, it works. Big E doesn't need it. I've always said Big E always had great talent, especially coming out of NXT. And big guy matches you could see, but for whatever reason, they never put him out into a direction where he could go out in a singles run. But he should be able to. Because right now, he's got great charisma. He definitely feels comfortable with his character. He can go ahead and then just move the character that he has right now and move it along and going forward. So we could see him come into play and really make something of himself. And that's what he should be doing right now, to be honest. Now, with that, beating Sheamus, that should be a step for Sheamus to go ahead and take the drop off, because Sheamus should not be positioned right now and pushed in any way. Right now, he's a mainstay. He's like what Cesaro is. He's what Dolph Ziggler is. They are solidified mid-carders. And that's what Sheamus is. They're never going to push him back up to the main event. I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I don't think anybody wants to see Sheamus at that level. And that's okay. I mean, that's not a bad place for Sheamus to be. Obviously, he's got a job in WWE for as long as he wants. He's tenured. So, Big E getting the win, 12 minutes. Good. Now, then Matt Riddle comes into play. Now, I'm on the fence of how they've used him when he was confronting AJ Styles. And, the King Corbin ransom, that was a bullshit storyline. So King Corbin, Matt Riddle, they're going to decide to go and let's get this match here so we can go ahead and just fizzle out this storyline that this was just a kind of a shitty TV storyline that we just needed to get out of the way. But it was to give Matt Riddle something to do. Okay. Well, Matt Riddle wins in about 11 minutes. Takes care of it. Clean finishes, by the way, across the board. We didn't have any Dairy Queen finishes. I was surprised by that. But again, this is one of those things where the company realizes, okay, besides the Thunderdome, having that gimmick back, they know they can't just rely on the Thunderdome to get people back on board. They need to get starting in some stars that people can get behind, that they're saying, oh, look, we're getting somebody we can get behind. So Big E, Matt Riddle, Shayna Baszler, Keith Lee, these are people that people want to get behind right now. That will get some of this audience to stay on board and to keep the 2 million viewers on each Raw and SmackDown to stay constant. They need this to happen. So with that said, Matt Riddle with the win. again, how much shelf life is there with the bro gimmick? We need something more to go along with this. He needs layers because he is one-dimensional. Now, Corbin using the wife and putting a little personal part to the gimmick is one thing, but I just think it's something to be said where Matt Riddle, again, can give good matches, but we got to have something else more to bring in here. I don't know what that's going to be, but we have to figure out what they can do. And I'm just not sure what they can do to make this work. So with that said, we just need to see what else they can do with Matt Riddle. I mean, it can't just be dependent on who he faces. It's got to be dependent on the character. We have to see him grow out into more of who he is. Turn him up to 11, see what he can do. Whatever that can be. And it's going to be tough when he has nobody. When you just got to hope that the company's going to actually get behind and actually try to do some things to help broaden the horizons of Matt Riddle in terms of a character. So, again, you put him in a wrestling ring, the guy's rocking it, but he can go anywhere and do that. This is where WWE, of course, needs to go ahead and use their system, use the machine to build a character out of him. And this is where they can polish people off, but then they also need to be able to go ahead and position stars and give them something more to get behind. It can't be just something small, can't just be a catchphrase. And they're under the gun because they do not have a crowd to work off of. And that's a detriment and an advantage for them right now. So they could build off of that as they're waiting for live crowds to come back. Now, with that said, tag team titles, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax. So they didn't want to give Shayna Baszler the singles run. They gave her one, got her up to take on Becky Lynch, and ever since has been a non-factor. She's back. She did a little bit of stuff with Raw Underground. Okay. But then other than that, then they brought her and Nia Jax together out as a part of that. And then, okay, here we are. They're playing the Chris Candido Lance Storm gimmick, which is where I always go back to when I think about, Cesaro and Sheamus. Let's give a WWE example. Two heels that don't like each other, right? So they're going to that story here. It's the Cesaro and Sheamus angle kind of already started again. Except no bar fight. They just used the Raw Underground as a gimmick to bridge the gap between these two stars and put them together. Nia Jax needs something to do. And so Nia Jax will play the Tamina role, I would like to think of. It's the Tamina Snuka role. Kind of, sort of, like when you had Alexa Bliss get accompanied by Tamina for a while coming out to the ring. Wasn't that who she was out with? Well, no, it was Nia Jax, excuse me. That's what I meant. Nia Jax played that role with Alexa Bliss. But what we're getting here is that Shayna Baszler is the draw. And Nia Jax coming in to help out will be helpful. It's a different look to the tag team titles, fine. Sasha now has no belts. Bayley has one belt. And so could we see a split between those two now? Taking the belts off of them a couple of them at a time and having just the regression for Sasha Banks over 2 pay-per-views, there's a story to be told there. So between her and Bayley, that'll give something new to talk about. And with Shayna Baszler, I think, they're putting the dynamic of having these two at odds. That works. And we'll see how they decide to go this round. Will they make this a team that will finally get in together and they could be the Bar? We don't know if they could be like that or not, but they could very well go that route. It's the same gimmick. This is nothing new. They're not doing anything different. But if they think this is going to help Shayna Baszler being put into a tag team and then bridging her out and then splitting her up later on, I guess that can work. I mean, this is what Vince would probably do instead of having her out there being the MMA star. He doesn't like it. He just doesn't get into it. And I guess that is what it is. Now moving along. Keith Lee and Randy Orton. So Keith Lee gets his win back. And 6 minutes, 40 seconds to finish off Randy Orton. Now Randy Orton already finished a big feud with Drew McIntyre. All there is there. And that's fine. I think what it comes down to is I look at what they're doing with Keith Lee. You know, they obviously need to do something with him. The crowd will just shit on this if they don't. If they just position him to be another Aleister Black or Ricochet, that's going to be a mistake. And I think giving the credibility of a Randy Orton right now works. I got no problem. I mean, again, I'm not worried so much about how the matches, how the outcomes of the matches in terms of like the performance. They were all fine. I think the outcomes and the story they're trying to tell is what I really was paying attention to throughout this pay-per-view tonight. It's really wanted to see what were they going to do with these matches and what were they trying to get at? What was the modus operandi? So with Keith Lee, they put it here. Quick win. People were, nitpicking the window dressing when it comes to his generic music, to having to cover up his gut because Vince doesn't like fat guys on TV, except for Otis. There can only be one fat guy, and that's it. And then here we are with Keith Lee. They need to do more with him. He needs more promo time. He also, much like Matt Riddle, he is a project. Okay, he is a project that needs to be built up and need to do more with him. What is that going to be? We have to find out. With Dominik Mysterio, okay, this is much like the WCW Nitro days where we have our nepotism. Now, I haven't talked much about Dominik Mysterio because I don't have much to say. Dominik Mysterio is David Flair. I'm sorry. This is the Ric Flair, David Flair feel to it. I feel like Dominik Mysterio is going to get a Daphne very soon, and that's how it's going to work out. He's going to get a Daphne and Crowbar. And then you know what? Dominik will turn on his own, and then he'll kind of just split off. I could see that happening. I don't know. That's just where I'm coming from with it. Maybe there's more, but again, he didn't do bad in the match. The match went very well for 16 minutes. I can't stand Seth Rollins. And I don't know what you do with Seth Rollins. I can't stand the character. But again, they're badly booked mid-carders. Like Seth Rollins has been brought to the main event and down. I hate his character here in the mid-card. Again, it's just like Baron Corbin. I hate his character as the king. They're just bad gimmicks. And they're tried out and worn out and tried and tested gimmicks. So King having a royalty gimmick, we've seen it done better. Insert King Booker. When it comes to Seth Rollins, we've seen people do the divine gimmick much better. I'm just saying, I just don't see what they're doing right here that really makes much to me. Like, it's just not working. And I don't know what else you do. But Seth Rollins, I wish we could just get this off of him. I don't know what you do with him at this point. I do know what you could do with him. I think Seth Rollins, for the Monday Night Messiah gimmick to be better, I don't like him just being kind of polished and reverent with times of being diabolical. Seth Rollins needs to lose it. And what I mean by that, he needs to turn cult leader. He needs to kind of turn on his people. And there's no authors of pain. So turn on Murphy or just kind of go off the deep end. Seth Rollins should lose the hair and shave it and just turn into something, just go all damn Charlie Manson like. I would love that. I don't think he would do it. I don't think he'd ever shave his hair down. But I would like something like that to kind of happen, just to give a complete change to the character and really make him go in some other direction, or just do something to the hair. I don't know, just do something to change the look. But Monday Night Messiah doesn't mean much at all to me. It doesn't mean anything much, and it's not that good at all. It just isn't good, period. So that match was fine. Okay, Dominik and Rey win the match. Then we move along to a repeat of SummerSlam with Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. I hated this match except for the ending. We just can't see Bray Wyatt in a match. It's the Fiend character in matches sucks. And I don't think they realize that. I think you want to have Bray Wyatt out in the match and then turn him into the Fiend, I guess, but they're not going to be able to do anything like that. The Fiend isn't working for this. I don't know. I don't know what you do, but it's just bad. You can't make him the Undertaker, and for whatever reason, the in-ring work of the Fiend does not translate. And can it be because of the people he gets to work with? I guess. Braun Strowman is not doing any favors here. So with that said, they do the Big Show gimmick. Was it Big Show and Mark Henry that also did the thing where Big Show got, or was it Cena and Big Show, right? And they did the body drop, suplex from the top rope, drop Strowman, does Bray Wyatt, ring collapses, and then there's the Roman Reigns Paul Heyman thing, which I didn't get to talk about because it happened on Friday night. Okay. I like the Paul Heyman position with Roman Reigns. If you want to get Roman Reigns over as a heel, you give him Heyman. What does that mean for Heyman and Lesnar? Maybe it just means that Heyman has two people in the stable. Now, we also know they're going to be doing a draft very soon. I haven't read anything about as to when that's going to happen. So that might be the next thing will get people interested in what they're going to do. But I could see where Roman Reigns holds on to this belt as a heel for a while. I think that's going to come up. I can see that happening. So if there's going to be a draft, I don't know when that's supposed to be. But again, it was October last year they did it. And we've had reports that another draft will be happening in October. And so they could do that. And if they decide to do it, they have a couple of dates that they're thinking about in mind and who could get switched over. But again, we got probably a couple of weeks before they decide to do it, or they could just do it sooner. Who knows? So with that said, it's fine. I think there's just seeing Roman Reigns here in this role, we have to see more of it. Obviously, you get the instant heel push right now because Paul Heyman's attached. And Roman Reigns doesn't have to say too much. Paul Heyman can just do the talking. Really just depends right now on as to what they decide to do during the draft, where he decides to go. Will they move him over to Raw, keep him on SmackDown? I think he keeps on SmackDown. I don't know why they wouldn't do that. And then the idea would be that Heyman needs to go to the position whoever's going to be the next person. But here's the problem. Roman Reigns is going to become the next Brock Lesnar in terms of who's the next opponent you put up against Roman Reigns. Because I really believe Roman Reigns will have a long run as champion, and it'll be an unstoppable reign as long as he is positioned with Paul Heyman. I see it happening. So what are they going to do? What happens next with Roman Reigns? Who's he going to take on next? Because I don't know if Braun Strowman's put in the mix or if Bray Wyatt stays in the mix. I don't know who becomes the next person that Roman Reigns will claim and go after. Like, they need to position who the next feud will be now that Roman Reigns has won the title. And that's a question for SmackDown coming up. That's all I can leave it at right there. And I'm going to leave it all right there for everybody right now and keep it. Again, we have nothing for Retribution. Retribution means nothing. I think personally, it's a TV gimmick. I would prefer that they just kind of get rid of it. I don't think they can give us any kind of payoff that's going to make people feel like it's going to do really well. I don't think there's any chance of that. That's where I come from with all that. Just saying. So let's leave it there. Thanks for listening in again to another edition of Wrestling is Real Podcast. Not much to say about it. But again, Payback was not a show that was like over the top. And, it gives me questions, things to think about. Gives me a reason to find out how they're going to go and play things out going forward. So we'll wait and let them go forward. Come back this Wednesday going into Thursday. We'll do another show. Fallout from Payback. And we'll get ready for All Out. Coming up next weekend, a big Saturday pay-per-view, and we will do a post-show for that here on an upcoming Wrestling is Real podcast next week. Come back for the next show this coming Wednesday going into Thursday, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, WrestlingIsReal.com.